So, hi, Jean Paul. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
In honor of today, I'm wearing one of my performing arts high school's show shirts from the first show I got to do there. It's very well loved
Well,
for
if I'd
me.
known that, I would have grabbed something of mine. Oh
it's
well.
it's good news, which most people don't know, but it holds a very near and dear place to my heart. But I thought it was appropriate.
The show from the 1930s?
Well, technically,
Somewhere
it
there?
was written in the 1920s.
Okay.
And then it had a weird revival at some point where they set it in the 30s. And instead of
Okay.
focusing on the kids, they focused on the adults, and it was not super successful.
Yeah.
And then in I think, early 2000s, they did a production at Encores with Christopher Fitzgerald, I think.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
not sure.
yeah, but well loved, obscure show with great songs that I wish more people knew about because it's super fun.
I knew it was old. I just couldn't
Yeah.
remember exactly how old. Because yeah, it is obscure. Nobody does it.
Right.
So,
There is a movie also that MGM did that changed a lot. Um, and it's fun, but it's a very different show.
okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't know. I should have worn my shirt.
So you are most well known in the theater community as the founder and creator of Musical Theater Radio, which is awesome, and I'm a huge supporter of. Can you tell us a little bit about what Musical Theater Radio is, what sets it apart, and how you came about founding it?
Sure. Musical Theater Radio is a free online radio station that plays nothing but stage show tunes from around the world. You know, popular and rare, old and new. Um, from but our main focus is on celebrating and pushing new and lesser known creators. So new musicals are always heard in our station, which I think is very important because I don't think there's enough of a push out there
Mhm.
with big media. Or if you look at some of the big popular ones, and I won't say radio stations out there that play musical theater, it's all Broadway or it's all the West End, and that's great. That's fantastic. But there are other people out there who want the niche stuff, and there are other shows out there that no one is going to be heard unless somebody champions them. And I decided, I love discovering new musicals, so let's do that.
I'm so grateful for it, and I think it's so smart. I was chatting for this with Joe Iconis a couple days ago,
Mhm.
and we were talking about one of the things we talked about was the discovery of new work and new artists. And I remember being a little thing and getting Audra McDonald's album where she had deliberately insisted that she was only going to do songs from up and coming lesser known musical theater writers, which included like Adam Gettle and Michael John LaCusa, which now we all know and love, but at the
Yeah.
time they were not as well known. And I remember it being a huge thing for me, discovering all these incredible writers and it opening up this realm where I then discovered, Floyd Collins and the Spitfire Grill and Violet and all this stuff. And it was specifically because she advocated doing that. And I think we really need people like you who are advocating for that, because otherwise, I mean, we live in a world now where I know you've even said it is somewhat easier for writers in that you can create your own album with GarageBand if you know what you're doing. But still, for people who love musical theater, finding those new niche people when they're not necessarily the ones that are getting invited to the obscure, development readings of new stuff is difficult and it's tricky, but it's really important and it's really special. So, why do you think that you have such a passion for that? Because not everybody does. And I think it's something really special and unique.
I've always just loved discovering new works.
Yeah.
When I was at Sheridan College, I started out as a performer in college, and we'd have to sing songs from the musical
Yeah.
theater canon, and everybody would go up. And at the time, it was the mid '90s, so all the you got City of Angels, you got Les Mis and Phantom and things like that. Oh geez, I'm thinking about it, just come out not too long before that. Man, I feel old. But I was singing things like "I Love My Wife" and "Celebration" and
Mhm.
shows that everybody was going, where did you find this stuff?
Mhm.
And I don't know, it's just something about I was drawn to finding something that nobody else was performing or had heard of or you know realized that existed. And my love of weird or different or lesser known stuff has just continued with everything I do. So it's kind of just who I am
Mhm.
as a person. Is I like it different. I like to try something different. I'm a bit of a disruptor, or as my grandmother would call me, a shit disturber, which is I'm okay with that. And that's just who I am. And I love to introduce other people to new works and helping people discover stuff and grow.
Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you got into musical theater.
Sure, I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Um, I started musical theater, and it, and you got to take this with a grain of salt from my mom. I started before I was born.
Mhm.
She was in rehearsals for Oklahoma,
Mhm.
and she was pregnant with me, and she would say I would kick along to the music
Mhm.
before I was even born. So I was on stage in rehearsals before I even came out. But the funny thing is, I never did any shows until I was in like grade 9. I did Art Town, which I think every student in the world does at some point.
Except
And
for me, it's like my favorite play ever, and I've never gotten to do it.
and then I did Little Shop of Horrors in grade 12, and that's when the light came on and went, you know what, this is what I want to do. So I didn't perform. I hear so many people, I did so many shows when I was a kid and growing up and all this stuff, and I was like, nope, did nothing. I went to a lot of theater. I saw a lot of stuff, but I just wasn't wanting to be on stage at that point. And then something clicked, and I decided it's time to get into musical theater and become a performer. And I went to Sheridan College for that. After I graduated from there, I went to York University for theater studies, and I did the other side of the stage. So I did the writing, directing, producing, and all that. And I realized that it's not being on stage that I love; it's being in the theater that
Mm.
I truly love. And that was a moment for me that I went, you know what? I'm a pretty good actor. I'm a pretty good singer, dancer. Well, okay, not dancer, but singer and actor, but I don't need to be on stage. And I transitioned, and that's kind of what I do now. I work at the university at Vania College Productions. It's an extracurricular theater company there that's open to all students, not just theater students, but econ and biology and all of them. And I'm an assistant producer there. And I just love helping the students, which goes back to my love of helping new works. It's just, I don't know, it's inside of me to help people.
What led to the route of channeling all that into a radio station? Because there's so many, and I mean, you do lots of other things. You do produce and develop in other ways,
Yeah.
but there's not many people who have thought of channeling that in the way that you did. What made that jump for you?
So when I got out of York, I needed to find work because surprise, surprise, there's no money in musical theater. You have to get other work to pay bills and stuff like that. So I became a mobile DJ. So I used to do corporate and weddings and DJ events for about 13, 14 years. And I moved away from Toronto, which I didn't do as much theater. And then I moved up to Ottawa, which was about 5 hours away from Toronto. So I did even less theater. And for about 10, 15 years, I was out of theater. I really didn't do anything. I still appreciate it, but I didn't even get to it. And I was running a business up there, and we closed that business, my partner and I. And I started another one, and it was well received, but I couldn't get financial backing.
Mhm.
So when something isn't working in business, you pivot, right? And then you pivot again if it's not working, and then you pivot it again. And I pivoted 4 times, and I realized I've just done a full circle and I'm back to where I was. I wasn't happy. I wasn't making money. So I moved back to Toronto to be near my kids at that point and said, you know what, let's close this other company and figure out something else. And then I just decided, you know what, I have all these CDs and tapes and LPs in my other room. Why don't I just start a radio station? Why not?
Mhm.
And I did the research, I looked into it, and almost 3 years ago, I started musical theater radio station. Um, I
How do you
came
how
into
do you
the
go about starting a radio station? I have no idea how that works.
Um, I'll tell you, but if anybody else wants to do it, don't steal musicals. But there's websites out there like radio.co, Live 365, etc. There's a few where you can build your own radio station,
Mm,
and they take care of it. They give you the software and all that sort of thing. So I just found a website, found the one I liked, signed up,
mhm.
and then you create a company and you put in all the music that you own.
Do you have to I mean, not that I was around for it, but my understanding is sort of back in the day,
Yeah.
if you were hosting a radio station, you had to like be in the station all day, like actually plugging in
Yes.
songs and whatnot. How does it work in the digital age? Do you pre-program things and then you can go away for a couple days, or do you have to be actively live doing things?
You can do either. You can, there's radio stations on the system I use that they are live a lot of the time. For me, I don't ever do live. It's a lot more difficult, and you need different software and things like that. I pre-program everything. I have about 10 different shows that I pre-program ahead of time, and then just a general mix that runs when there isn't a show on.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's so easy to do. If you own legally all the music, that's the key.
Mhm.
Um, but luckily, like I said, I have hundreds and hundreds of CDs and LPs, and some of them, my LPs never made it to CD, so
Mhm.
they're rare and nobody knows them unless you owned the LPs. So again, goes back to that rare thing and
Yeah. I love
stuff.
collecting old show LPs that you can't
Mhm.
easily get
Yeah.
access to. I got one. Well, I guess not too recent. I think of recently as like recently pre-pandemic, and then there's like the hole in the universe that is the pandemic. But that very interesting show, Lolita, My Love,
Mhm.
and some other fascinating ones that you can only get sort of on LP.
Yeah.
How did you go about going from having all this great music to connecting with new up and coming writers and getting their work featured?
It's what I learned from when I was in the business world, when I was running the when I was running with the DJ company and my other
Mhm,
companies, which is a whole completely different world than arts, and I learned that quickly.
mhm,
Business people do not think the same as artsy people, so I had to, transition my brain and learn a lot of more business aspects, and I took all that and channeled it into the theater. I just went into social media. That's
mhm.
by far the easiest. I went
That's
on
how I
Twitter.
connected with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my old company, I had about, I think at one point, 24,000 followers
Mhm.
with my old company. And that's all I did. I did the exact same thing that I did with that one. Again, that I just went on and I searched new musicals, and just followed people and connected with them. I use social media for what it's meant for, to be
Yeah.
social and reach out and talk to people. And a lot of times, I'll be honest, nobody got back to me because either it was a dead link because nobody was touching it anymore, or for some reason they didn't want to get back to me or
Mhm.
talk to me. I don't know why. Um, but that's how I did it. I just reached out and took all my networking skills and just met one person and
Yeah.
then met another person and met another person. And then that person, the first person I met, knew somebody and introduced me. And it's just slowly snowballs
Yeah.
until you meet people, and until where I am now, where I'm finally getting to meet some higher,
Yeah.
um, more famous people or people deeper into the industry. Because
Mhm.
when I started 3 years ago, I was again cold. I knew nobody. Even though I'd done musical theater, I'd been out for so long. I was starting nobody, knowing no one, and
Yeah.
just had to work my way up.
Yeah. What's your process like of sorting through new work and deciding what you want to feature? Because one thing I love about you is you cast such a wide net and you're so supportive. But being somebody who has also, been a reader for festivals and projects and things like that, there are amazing undiscovered gems out there. There are also some maybe not the best things that need some more work that are not necessarily the things that you want to be putting out there. So for you, what's your process of sort of determining what you want to then include and feature versus what might not be ready yet?
For me, I think all shows deserve some kind of recognition because what do I know? Who am I to decide if something's good or bad or ready or not?
Or
Like
even, I guess, in terms of quality of the recordings that are out there for you to potentially feature?
the quality of recordings is a whole different thing. Yes, if it's got to be at least a good live recording
Mhm,
or at least some kind of demo. It doesn't have to be professional demo,
mhm,
but at least some kind of good quality.
mhm.
Um, that that is standardized. I need to have that to be put on the radio station.
Right.
But for the types of shows and whether they're good or bad, that's subjective, and it doesn't matter what I think. And there are shows that are on that I play that I'm not fans of, but that doesn't matter because somebody else is a fan of.
Yeah.
And even if somebody creates something that isn't, we'll use the word great or good, they're learning. And if it's their first show, there's always some kind of gem in there. And somebody might hear it. I might not hear it, but you might hear it, or another listener might hear it, or a producer or somebody like that. So I put on for new creators, pretty much anybody. If you contact me, you've obviously taken that step that you want some help or want to be discovered. And you know what? If you've taken that step, I'm going to help you take the next step. And will it go somewhere? Who knows? It's like on Broadway, what 4/5 of them don't succeed.
Right.
And let's be honest, with musicals, it's probably like 98 out of 100 or even
Yeah.
higher that don't really go anywhere. But if nobody gives them that opportunity, you don't know where it's going to go.
Well,
So,
and it's so important because so many of the stepping stones that were in place and were, sort of the path for decades, like including the off Broadway path and whatnot, it doesn't
mm,
work that way anymore.
no,
All the places that used to sort of be the off Broadway experimental, yeah, we'll develop new work and sort of take a chance. That's now existing sort of the way Broadway was existing in the 80s and 90s. And now Broadway's become a whole other entity. So now there's off Broadway and there's, places like you and whatnot, but finding ways to really develop your show and get it heard and seen are becoming more and more challenging for a lot of reasons. And one is the economics of commercial theater now are just so insane that,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, when I talk to new writers, and I have this conversation all the time, we've put the West End and Broadway as the be all and end all.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to get their show on Broadway or on the West End.
And they're
And you know
great.
what?
And you do feature music from those places
Oh,
as
for
well.
sure.
It's all
Of
mixed in,
course.
which I think is
Yeah,
great.
because it'd be foolish for me not to play Oklahoma or
Yeah.
come
You get
from the rain.
Oklahoma, you get a new show, and you get Hamilton. It's like, what more could you want?
Exactly, exactly. But it's not the be all and end all. I would love to get my show on Broadway, but I would rather get it into 50, 100, 200 community theaters and get that and build that recognition than on Broadway. And I think writers are slowly getting to realize that there's more to just New York as well, and in London. Topeka, Kansas has a theater scene. Calgary, Alberta has a theater scene. All these smaller cities all have theater scenes. Take advantage of it.
Mhm.
The first time I did my show, I did it myself. I started a one act play festival in the theater. Luckily, I had access to a theater and I did it there. And then when I did a full production, I went to a community theater in my town. They were looking for new works.
Yeah.
I did it that way. I think that's the direction a lot of creators, new artists need to go. Take it to that community theater, take it to a university and ask them if they'll develop it and help build it. I'm working with this couple of writers who just graduated from NYU with
Mhm.
their show. And I said, you know what, I'd love to take it and work with the students at York University
Yeah.
because you can take it and do a 29-hour read with professionals and it is going to sound good
Yeah.
because they can fix it, right? These are actors who know how to fix things.
Yep.
I'm going to take it to my students who aren't necessarily actors, who are raw, and you're going to get a real
Mhm.
feeling of how it's going to sound coming out of the mouths of regular people, for lack of a better
Yeah.
term. And I think artists need to go in that direction. And also another one is take advantage of online right now. I know nobody wants to be online anymore. We've been
Well, but
doing
it
it for
has opened up a whole new world for
yes, it
us in
has.
some positive ways. I've done readings with people from literally all around the world that we would never have been able to be in the same room before, and
Right.
that's actually been one of the rare, positive, exciting things to come out of this
Yeah.
time. So,
We've
yeah,
we've all learned so many great skill sets
yeah,
because of this. We all know how to now record audio. We know how to record video. We know how to edit all those things. We know how to work our mics. But like you said, we're
hopefully we
able
all
to
do.
we're able to connect with the whole world now. I have conversations. New York City has become my virtual second home.
Mhm.
I'm there all the time talking to people. I'm also in London all the time, virtually talking to people. I'm talking to people in Australia. And all these people I would never have met and
Yeah,
except for, going virtual.
yeah.
And it's made such a difference. And I think it's not going to replace obviously live theater. That never will. That's been happening for thousands of years. But we need to take advantage of
Mhm.
the online ability now to, you know, take our shows that we want on real live stage and just workshop them and work them and play with it in that way.
Well, and that leads me to you've now branched out um, into, in addition to musical theater, or it's become a part of musical theater
Yes.
radio. It's not just playing music, but actively developing new work. And you have new projects that you're doing that virtually, you're doing some things in person. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that transition started happening?
Yeah. Um, like I said, you don't make any money with musical theater. If you're in musical theater or the arts, you're not in it for money. You're in it for love. And,
Hey,
and
I
the
am in it for the money.
and I hope you succeed. And please tell us the secrets if it does succeed. Um, but the radio station itself will probably not make money or at best break even. But it opens up avenues that I've been able to explore with things that will make money. So, like in real life, like I said, I'm working with these writers at NYU to put their show on, hopefully, once the pandemic's done, in a real theater with students and developing a show that way. Um, I'm working with Stuart Brayson. It's going to be happening in March of this year. He wrote From Here to Eternity with Tim Rice. Him and I have partnered together. We've done a few other things in the past. We're creating the musical theater virtual workshop, which is bringing people around the world together. We're going to have a panel session. We're going to have introduction of a couple of new musicals who can talk to the panel, can talk to the audience, and a networking thing.
Mhm.
So I put together networking events for people to get together and just talk and share things like that. And with my partner, Lori Gladowski from 35th Parallel Productions, we've created the Jill Edmond Virtual Theater,
Mhm.
which is really exciting for me. Like I said, online and virtual, again, won't replace it, but it's another option.
Yeah.
So we created this virtual theater, which is as close as I've seen to a real theater online because you can go into a lobby and you can sit with people at tables and talk with them and then you go on stage. It's not like Zoom, where you have 50, 100, 200, 300 heads staring at you. It's the lights virtually go down and you're on stage and things
Mhm.
like that. So there's little things like that that I'm always trying to develop something different. I'm always willing to try something new.
Yeah.
Take a risk. What's the worst that's going to happen? It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So what? You take what you learned from it, what didn't work, and implement what did work and reject next time what didn't work.
Yeah.
And just keep trying and trying out there. And I think that's the most important thing. People
Yeah.
just try.
What are your ultimate goals for MTR and all of these other wonderful things that you're doing? What if in a perfect world where you did have tons of money, what would you like to see it all be functioning as?
If I had tons of money, I would love to be a producer. That would be, it'd be. I don't know if I'd be a good one, but I would love to help shows at least get off their feet and get in front of audiences onto a stage somewhere. With all my shows that are new that I play on the station, my ultimate goal is just to see them get on stage and get recognized and see them go from just these demos or the early workshops to a full-fledged production. It doesn't have to be Broadway or the West End, just somewhere. And that's starting to happen, which is so much, it's so much fun and exciting because it's been 3 years, and some of them that I've met 3 years ago are now getting a chance to go on stage and get better cast recordings. And I can't wait to see them.
Yeah.
And I'd love to be a part of, you know, the next Cats
Yeah.
or Hamilton or whatever. Just watch them grow and get big. I feel like a teacher sometimes.
Mhm.
When you're in school, you watch the students and you watch them, and it's exciting when they learn something and they grow and they do something, and then they go on, and that's okay. I can just say, you know what, I did my little part to help that. So,
What's the biggest advice that you would give to new up and coming writers who might be at various stages of their career? Because you probably hear more new work than
mm,
anyone else, I would imagine, at this point, unless you're a teacher at the grad musical theater
yes.
writing program at NYU. So, what advice would you give to the new writers that you see coming up?
Um, One of the most important things is when you are a writer, um, you're an artist, and that's what you're good at, and you focus in on that. I want people to remember that there's two words in the word show business. I guess it's sentence, show business.
Yeah.
And artists are fantastic, and they focus on the word show, which is great, but they can't forget about the word business. And they need to go out and network and talk to people and create a simple website and do all the not fun business side
Yeah.
of creating a show, or even finding somebody who will do it, or to help you. And don't and never burn a bridge.
Yeah.
That I find, if somebody approaches you, don't ignore them. Don't slough them off for whatever reason, because you don't know who they know.
Yeah.
And that's the funny thing. When I approached shows 3 years ago, I had a huge list, and I reached out to them. And about a year and a half later, some of them would finally get back to me, or they'd find me a different route. I'm like, I approached you 2 years ago. Why didn't you want help then?
Yeah.
Like, I'm curious. Not that I didn't help them
Right.
afterwards, but yeah, my advice is, don't forget about the business side. Don't burn any bridges. Talk to everybody and ask for help. I'm terrible at that. I'll
Yeah.
be honest, but ask for
No,
help.
it's true, and I think that the theater community is, I mean, it really is a community in a very special way. And some of the most miraculous things that have happened to me in my career is just because I got brave and asked for something. And it's like you said, the worst that can happen is somebody says no. But a lot of times people will say yes.
Yeah,
And because, somebody said yes to them, and um, take a chance and do the thing. And I like to try to enjoy the business side of it,
mhm,
and find the creative aspects of it,
yeah,
because things like having to create a log line for your show and having to come up with branding and artwork and whatnot, it's a way to hone in on really what the essence of your show is. And I
mhm,
think it makes you a better writer of,
sure,
really what is the image that is going to represent this piece, and to try to look at it in a fun way, as opposed to like, oh gosh, I got to do the stupid business side when I just really want to go do the other
yeah,
thing. And it's going to help you when you do get to that point in your career where there are other people doing that you need to have an intelligent conversation with. If you're
mhm,
working with a big artwork company, you want to be in a position to have an intelligent conversation with them and not just be like, "Yeah, I guess what everybody else wants," because it's only going to help the whole production, I think.
for sure. It's like an actor.
Uh,
If you only
oh gosh,
concentrated
yeah,
on acting,
being an actor is hard because you are the product. So the branding is also has to do with, what do I look like, and how do I dress and whatnot, and that's,
but
oh
as an
yeah,
actor, they if they only concentrate on the acting, they and I tell this to the students, if you should learn about the other parts of the
yeah.
business. Learn about the lights, learn about the
Mhm.
sound, learn about the carp, learn about producing and tickets and this and that. And it's the same thing. The more you know, the
Mhm.
better off you are when you're talking, if you make it to the next level. And then
Yeah.
you don't look like an idiot, right? Because when you are able to communicate with that other person, they're like, oh, they get it. They might not, you don't have to know everything, but if you, as long as you know enough that you can hold a conversation,
Yeah.
all right. The artistic person, the artistic director, whomever is on the other side, knows this is not what you concentrate on,
Mhm.
but I want to work with you because you understand me, I understand you, and I always say I'd rather work with somebody who's not as talented but is more willing to work.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and it allows you to communicate better. I'll never forget. I grew up performing. I did my first, theatrical show when I was 5, and I grew up in Los Angeles. So, um, but I remember the first time I went through Tech Week after I had done a program where I had learned about like lights and all of that stuff from a holistic standpoint. And it was a completely different experience because suddenly it's not like, oh, we're all just standing around while they just like talk and like, what's the point? And we're here and like, we can, just do it. It's like, oh, wow, they've got to like refocus 20 lights and they need to change the gels. And I better stand
Yeah.
here because otherwise they're going to get the blend wrong. And, it becomes a communal experience where you're
Yes.
really working together.
Yeah.
So
I love people who do that.
what are some of your favorite lesser known shows, whether they're things that have been on Broadway in the West End that we may not know as much about, or new shows that are just some of your favorites that you think we should all be in the know about?
Some of my favorite shows too that I've really enjoyed over the years. I'm going to go back. One of my favorites is like 1929, Boys from Syracuse, Rogers and Hart.
Mhm.
Rogers and Hart are my favorite composer lyricist team of
Yeah.
all time. I love what they do, and it may be almost 100 years old, but it's still fresh and
Mhm.
fun. It's also based on Shakespeare, and we love
Yeah.
doing Shakespeare stuff. So you already got a good base, but the music's beautiful and brilliant and funny. Um, I love the show Five Guys Named Mo. I could listen to that cast recording over and over again. I saw it in Toronto.
Mhm.
There's one of the things I hate is when I'm in a show is audience participation.
Mhm.
I hate it. They tricked me and got me to do it.
Yeah.
That's how good the show was. If you can get me to do it, I'm like, you win. But it's such great music. Hello Again. It's by John Michael. I always get his last name wrong.
Cadillac?
Uh, Lechent? No. Oh, I forget. He wrote Bernard
There's
of
Michael John LaCusa.
Lacusa.
Yeah.
Yes. So Hello Again. It's I love that show, that cast recording. One of my favorites. Um, I don't know. I'll be honest. After a while, they all start to blend together, kind of. When
Yeah.
I listen to how many cast recordings a day,
Right.
and I just listen straight through, and I'm trying to listen for something that catches my ear,
Mhm.
which I think the audience might be interested in listening on the radio station. So yeah, they all start. I'll be honest, to
Yeah.
blend together. When I got like almost 1,200 albums in the system in rotation. 6,000 shows on the station alone,
Yeah.
plus the I don't know how many I've listened to. It gets confusing after a while.
Well, and I think it's important also for people to learn the history of things, not just the history of all the shows that have been out there,
Mhm.
but um, like, for example, anybody who loves Joe Iconis's Be More Chill, go out and listen to all of his other stuff. Go and listen to his show Suits, which was his first big thing that was supposed to launch him, and then it didn't totally happen in the way that he had expected.
Yeah,
um, if you love a composer, go and research all the other things that they've done and other versions of the shows. And I think that's really important because it lets you learn about the trajectory of things. It also lets you learn lots of great new songs. For anybody who needs audition material, your station is the best place to
oh,
go
for sure,
because,
for
yeah,
sure.
great,
And
great
and
stuff.
and with your example of with Joe, find out his old work, but also find out who inspired him and
Yes.
listen to those works. Because
Mhm.
if you want to model yourself after him, find out what he listened to and enjoyed,
Exactly.
and then keep going back because you're going to discover so much great work
Yeah.
that you probably never even heard of.
Well, and like
Um,
Ryan Scott Oliver, who I love, who's now doing some more commercial things, but like I adore his show Darling that I discovered from YouTube videos that hasn't had a big New York production. It's
yeah,
super smart and lots of wonderful, great things in there. And what I love is that people in places like you are allowing access to things without sort of a gatekeeper filtering it. Um, and like Joe and I were talking about, one of the things I had to learn when I really started to break through in this industry is, you're sort of taught for so long, if you just work hard and you get to be the best, then like all the good things will happen. And I do believe that. That being said,
yeah,
being a successful like composer in this industry is not about who is the best composer. It's not like they pick, the 10 best composers and then they give an award and then that one gets their Broadway show because they're the best.
Mhm.
Everyone's the best. Everybody's equally good and everybody has a unique voice. And that's great and important because we need all of those voices. What it comes down to is not who's the best. It comes down to personal preference of a lot of people that are in the position to make those decisions. And the analogy I gave is, let's say I wrote the most brilliant show ever to exist about bees,
Mhm.
and you're a producer and you hate bees like with a passion. Doesn't matter how good my show is, you're not doing my show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's nice to have a place that's really unfiltered where you can really discover anything and everything without this whole personal preference being
Mhm.
imposed on it and filtering it, which I think is super important.
Yeah. I've never found a cast recording where there wasn't at least one gem, one
Yeah,
good song in it. So sometimes it's the only good song, let's be
right.
honest, because sometimes they're just not great, but there's always at least one, and I will include it.
Mhm.
And you know what? The rest of the album might not be good. The show might have been a flop, but you know what? Maybe it's a good audition piece. Like you said,
Yeah.
there's so many songs out there that, take them. And when you walk into an audition, I know when I'm on the other side of the table and somebody comes in and says, sing something that I don't know, which
Yeah.
is very rare,
Yeah.
I'm like, awesome. Or I know it's rare. I'm
Mhm.
like, wow, they did some work, or they did the research, or just, they are taking the time to look into
Mhm.
musical theater and finding something. And I think, and that's another thing. That's another one reasons I do that with the station is I'd love actors to listen to them and singers. And there's so many great songs to
Yeah.
discover out there for your audition pieces
Yeah.
or
And
cabarets or whatever.
and then there can be networking between, the creators and people out there who are listening. And because it's radio, you can listen all over the world, which is great. There's no filter there with any of it. Do
Well, I have
you
to say,
Yeah.
so I have to. We are only the radio station's only heard in the U.S., the U.K., and Canada
Okay.
because of licensing rights. Because I want to make
Got
sure
it.
the writers get paid.
Yeah.
Like I could technically open it up to the rest of the world, but a that I don't have licenses to them,
Right.
and b then the writers don't get paid.
Mhm.
And I just want to take care of them. So I wish if I was rich, that would be another thing. I'd buy licenses for everywhere,
Yeah.
so everybody in the world could hear. But
What is the musical theater scene in Canada like right now? I'm not as familiar with it as I am in other places. Is there much development of original Canadian musicals happening? I know a lot of like West End and Broadway shows might go there
mm,
to develop, but what's the original scene like right now in Canada?
right now, right this second, the pandemic obviously has shut down
Right.
everything. We
Yeah.
haven't had. I've been theater was open for 1 month, I think, in November, basically for the last 2 years.
Mhm.
Um, but honestly, I've looked at the UK, I've looked at the US. We closed March 13th of what was it, 2020? I don't even remember anymore. And we stayed closed. There was no open, shut.
Right.
Um, which is kind of nice. We knew we're shut. We'll figure out something else to do. There was
Yeah.
nothing else. Theater wise and musical theater wise, um, Sheridan College is Canadian musical theater, I forget what it's called, um, that helped create Come From Away.
Mhm.
That my college, my alma mater, um, helps nurture new works. So every year they take three shows or something like that, and the students will work on them with the writers for about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And thanks to Michael Rubinoff, uh, who I interviewed for my podcast, and I know a bit. Um, he created that back at Sheridan, and they've developed a number of shows. Whether they've gone on to anything big, a little bit, no, nothing like Come From Away, of course, but it gave them an opportunity to get them on its feet and workshop them with, students and take it off from there. So um, it's a weird world, musical theater in Canada.
Is
We
it
don't have
do
as many
most
people.
people who wanna do it feel like they have to move to New York or to London to do it, or are there people that are staying there?
A
to
lot of them do. I
yeah.
found a lot of them do move to New York because it is the epicenter, it is the hub. But I think that the pandemic has again changed that. I've met lots of writers in Canada who can stay where they are. I
Yeah.
know this guy in Montreal. He's a great young writer, um, and he doesn't need to go anywhere. You
Yeah.
know, you can develop it there. Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, Edmonton. You know, the major city hubs. They
Yeah.
have their theater scene, and we can create stuff there.
Yeah.
But you don't need to. And this is holds true for the U.S., UK, Australia, anywhere.
Yeah.
You can develop it in house, in your country, in your
Mhm.
city now, and you take advantage of the online, take advantage of the community theaters, the schools, etc. So
Yeah.
it's we're much smaller,
Yeah.
group of people writing,
Yeah.
so a lot of people get to know each other. But
Yeah.
there's stuff out there, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of shows in the world that
Yeah.
nobody knows. That's the one thing that's funny. People ask me, "Oh, do you know this? You know that? You know this person?" I'm like, "No, sorry, I just don't. You're going to take away my musical theater card." I feel
I
that,
know.
but the truth is, do you know this person in Australia? Do you
Yeah.
know this person? Right? It's the jack of all trades thing with me. I know a little bit of everything for everywhere,
Mhm.
but I don't know. I couldn't delve honestly into the most famous people on Broadway unless you are Audrey McDonald
Right.
or something this high,
Yeah.
right? So,
Do you notice any trends in what the new writers are writing now, or is it really eclectic and all over the place?
oh, it's all over the place. It's anything's possible now. Back in the golden age of musicals, everything pretty much sounded the same. Let's be honest. Everything in the 40s and the 50s sounded the same. Excuse me. And then hair came along and it said rock is good. Let's use rock. And then rock got into it. And then you had country shows. You had like Big River, and you had Best Little Whorehouse and things like that. And then country is okay. And then you got hip hop, and then you got a little bit of everything. And today anything goes. There is no sound of musical theater now. You have your traditional sound,
Yeah.
but what does that even mean anymore? Right.
What about in terms of subject matter? Everything?
I think I think anything goes. Um, I think subject matter also is of its time. It's cyclical, and right now it's a lot of what's going on in the world today. You're gonna have a lot of the pandemic stuff. You got a lot of COVID. You've got a lot of with the racial tensions and
Yeah.
um, sexuality and things like that. There are bubbles of time which create different things.
Mhm.
That's neither right nor wrong. That's just a fact of art, right? We write what we know, and we write of the time. Um, but I don't think anything's off the board, and
Mhm.
I don't think it should be. Nothing. I don't believe, me personally, anything is sacred.
Mhm.
Like, you should be able to write about anything as long as it's respectful, and I don't even have to say good, but if it's good and respectful, it will get noticed.
Mhm.
And nothing should be off the table.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we start putting limiters on ourselves that way, we get a homogenous slime of blah. And we don't go anywhere with it. So
My favorite question to ask in an interview is there a question that you've always wanted to be asked in an interview and never have been?
no, because there's never a
Well,
question.
good. You've
I,
had some good interviewers. That's awesome.
you know what? The funny thing is, I haven't been interviewed a lot. It's starting to pick up. But I've done so many interviews on the other side, on your side,
Right. Yeah.
that I've pretty much asked most of the questions I've ever wanted to ask.
Mhm.
Um, but no, I'll be honest. I'm an introvert and very shy person. I know nobody believes it, but um, I don't like talking about myself. It's just, and that's why I'd rather promote other people and sit in the background. And I always compare myself. I love writing book. Book is my favorite thing to write out of the three things.
Yeah.
And most
I wish
people
we
don't know
talked
who
about the
they
book
are.
of musicals more because it's so important.
Oh, it is. It's huge. It's
Yeah.
without it. Well, you have a review. That's all you have.
True. But there's
Um,
such a mentality of, oh, I want to be a songwriter, and I guess we'll throw together some dialogue at some. Now that's
yeah,
not everybody, obviously, but I find that that's where a lot of things tend to come from. And I'm like, no, the book is really, really important. Like, let's start there.
for sure. I love and they're always the people forget about. Right when West Side Story came out
Yeah.
on what were they talking about? Who wrote music and lyrics by? Who wrote the original book? Doesn't matter. Like, but it does, and it is the glue that holds the show together. And I've come in. I love writing book. I've come in and helped uh, fix books
Yeah.
because it is not an easy thing,
Yeah.
and but it's the most selfless. Maybe you come in and you're not going to get noticed,
Well, because
and
all
you
your
know
best material goes to the songwriters.
exactly.
Yeah.
Even if you write this incredible outline, this incredible dialogue, and everything, yeah, the lyricist might go, "Oh, I like that line. I'm going to take that." Well, that was originally mine, but that's okay. I don't mind. It's for the betterment of the show.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm the type of person who likes to sit in the background. I will do what I do and then step off. And if nobody knows who I am, I'm okay with that.
So, what is the best way for all of us to be supporting you and your work right now? What do you need? How can we help?
Just tune in. Tune
Yeah.
into the radio station. If you love musicals, um, you're gonna just love the station. And if you love discovering new stuff, I make sure every sixth song, when it's just on the general rotation, is of a new work.
Yeah.
And you are going to discover, I can guarantee you tune in for an hour, you're going to hear shows you don't know.
Mhm.
You have no idea. And you will follow up from Hamilton, and then you'll go to Seesaw, and then you're going to go to a new work, and then you might go to Boys from Syracuse, and then you might go to a Buddy Hackett flop from 1963. I had a ball, and then go back to Come From Away. And then it's just
Yeah.
all over the map.
Yeah.
Um, and just take a listen to the radio station,
Yeah.
and you know, I think you'll enjoy it.
And how can we do that? How can we tune into the radio station?
It's nice and easy. I'm surprised nobody ever took it. Musicaltheaterradio.com.
And theater with an RE, right?
RE. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Uh,
Canadian. It's RE. It's
And
theater.
how can we follow you on social media?
Do you go to if you go to the website, all the links are there, so it makes it easier. But you can go to MTR_tweets is the one I'm the most active on. Or if you go to Instagram, it's Musical Theater Radio, and things like that. If you look up Musical Theater Radio, it's me on the social media.
And if there are new writers out there who want to get in touch about sending you their stuff, they can do that best on the website.
Yeah, go to the website. There's a whole tab called the sampler platter, which we didn't even talk about, which I have a couple of your shows on,
You
which
do.
basically I feature I every day, twice a day, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Eastern time. I play 4 or 5 shows, new works that you probably don't know. I play 3 songs. I give a synopsis. I give a production history,
Mhm.
and you learn about these shows. And then I also create a one pager on my website. So
Mhm.
if you like the shows, you can contact the writers and
Yeah.
go, "Hey, I'm interested in whatever
Yeah.
about it." So if you're a new writer and you want to maybe get it on the station, go
Mhm.
to the sampler platter tab. There's a link there that says contact me, and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, well, for joining me. It was great to chat with you. And I'm so happy that more people are getting to know you because I think what you're doing is so important. I think your station's phenomenal. I love putting it on and listening. And I mean, it was such a thrill for me when my material got played on the radio for the first time. I remember having a sort of like that thing you do moment. I was like calling out my collaborator, like, wow, the radio. And it's really special and wonderful, but there's just really great work out there and work to discover, and it's free to go and listen to, which I think is great.
Yes.
And thank you for all your support and everything, and I'm sure that we will be chatting soon. So
Oh,
thank
for
you
sure.
again so much for being here, and everybody go support Musical Theater Radio.
Thank you for having me on, Ashley.